This stress-free moment's brought to you by Lewis Jewelers. Thank you to all the frontline and essential workers that have made it possible for Washtenaw County and Ann Arbor to open again.
Welcome to the Wolverine.com podcast. This is the Maize and Blue Breakdown. I'm Clayton Sayfie. I'm with Sir Austin Fox, not to be confused with Sir Yacht. We'll get to some of the latest Big Ten rumblings. It feels like every day there's a new story out, a new report out about what could possibly happen with the Big Ten's fall football season, if there will be a fall football season. Before we do that, we'll talk to you about Blue 60, our promo code over at thewolverine.com. You get 60 free days of our premium content, recruiting updates, premium stories on Michigan football, Michigan basketball. Chris Ballas, our senior editor, just had a story up this morning with an update on Michigan's pursuit of five-star small forward Harrison Ingram, so you can read that. Again, promo code BLUE60 at thewolverine.com for 60 days free. Sir Austin Fox, how are we doing today?
I'm doing great, man. I've had fun watching these Detroit Tigers over this past week. They're on a 6-game winning streak, and they're right in the thick of the playoff hunt. They swept the Minnesota Twins over the weekend, took 2 out of 3 from Cleveland before that, and 2 out of 3 from the Chicago Cubs, and then they kept the good times rolling last night with a 12-1 blowout win over the Milwaukee Brewers. So this Tigers team, man, could actually sneak into the playoffs for the first time since 2014 and give us some postseason baseball again.
Yeah, I mean, they dragged me back in. You know, I hadn't really checked that Tigers thread on our message board over at thewolverine.com. You can use Blue 60 for 60 days free. Hadn't checked that thread for probably a week or two, week and a half maybe. But they dragged me back in, Austin, with this win streak. And now we can say Tigers are in a playoff race in September. It's kind of nice to be able to say that.
It really is. It's pretty cool, man, and they're exciting to watch. Spencer Turnbull is basically their ace, and he has a 2.97 ERA. He's on the mound tonight. Victor Reyes is a heck of a hitter. Jonathan Scope has been a great addition. This is a young, fun team to watch, and I think that you're not only back on the bandwagon, but Chris Ballas is as well. He posted that on Wolverine.com message board last night. So it's been really fun to watch this team, and I can't wait to see what they do this final stretch of the regular season.
So for everybody out there, we're recording this on Wednesday. It'll come out on Thursday. So Austin, gun to your head, if you're listening to this on Thursday, did the Tigers win last night?
They absolutely did. Turnbull pitched the gem, and the Tigers stretched that winning streak to 7 games.
Okay. Did Miggy extend his hitting streak?
Yes, he did. Yup, he went 2 for 4 last night, so he kept that hitting streak alive.
Man, I love Miggy. I'll always support Miggy no matter what. Too many good memories with him. So let's get into, that's great that the Tigers are back. But let's get into the latest Big Ten rumblings. Is the Big Ten going to be back? So Dan Patrick yesterday, on Tuesday, came out with a report on his Twitter account and said that the Big Ten is aiming for an October 10th start date if they can get some safety measures passed. Of course, President Trump was on the phone with Big Ten Commissioner Kevin Warren. They talked about some of those safety measures, including the government purchasing 150 million tests from Abbott, which are 15-minute quick result tests, no laboratory needed. That would be a huge development. I think, again, this is one of the reasons why I think it was stupid for the Big Ten to make the decision so early, because it's crazy how much medical progress we've made in the last 2-3 weeks since the Big Ten's decision. But that's a moot point at this point. But there are these developments happening. The Big Ten and Kevin Warren seem to be trying to make something work. And again, that you do have to present that to your presidents at the end of the day, and they're going to have to vote on it. That's the really hard part. But I'll say this, Austin, we have criticized Kevin Warren on this show before, and I think he's deserved some criticism. There's been a lack of transparency from the Big Ten. There's been a lack of communication from Kevin Warren in his interviews. But I will say this. I'm a little bit back on the Kevin Warren train, just a tad, because I think he is trying to make something work. And he said at the appropriate time, we will return. He wasn't the one that voted. He has some hand in the cancellation of the season, certainly a pretty big hand, but he is trying to make something work. He's not just saying like, okay, we're punting on the whole thing. Like, no, he's trying to find solutions. I give him credit for that. And, I'm not going to take back anything I said about what his, it wasn't anything crazy that I said, but, my criticism for him, I won't take it back, but I will say I'm starting to warm up to him a little bit in the fact that he's shown steps that he is taking to try to get back on the field, and that's a good thing.
He has gotten a lot of criticism over these past several weeks and months, and he's deserved a lot of it. But like you talked about, it is important to remember who made a lot of these decisions or who played a huge factor in this decision to cancel football, and that's the Big Ten university presidents. Michigan president Mark Schlissel has been getting a ton of criticism lately, and deservedly so, because we've heard that he's one of the biggest roadblocks in making this football season occur this fall, along with several other Big Ten presidents. So a lot of these guys are just simply anti-athletics, and they don't want it to occur. And that's obviously an issue because these Big Ten presidents have to change their votes if we want football season to occur this fall. I think Kevin Warren is feeling the heat and the pressure that we've seen from these Big Ten athletes and parents and media members. And I think that's a big part of why he's kind of coming around toward the idea. But again, it comes down to these presidents, and there are so many contradicting reports and statements out there that it's hard to believe. It's hard to know who to believe nowadays, because we had heard about a week ago that there was a conference call with the Big Ten head football coaches on it, in which it was described as a circus by Yahoo Sports writer Pat Fortysource. And then we had heard word from another Big Ten football coach that no conference call even occurred. So it sounds like some Big Ten coaches were on it, but not others. I don't know why that would be the case, but it's just hard to know who to believe nowadays and what to think in this whole situation that has basically turned into a soap opera over these past few weeks.
That's an important distinction because the coaches and the ADs, they want to play. I think there was a report that 14 out of 14 of the Big Ten ADs want to play football this fall. They disagreed with the decision. I think every coach disagreed with that decision, and they have said as much. The leaks are coming from the coaches and the ADs. The reports are coming from conversations with ADs and coaches, and those are usually very, very high up sources when it comes to college football, especially when it comes to on the field stuff. But man, the sourcing is just off on this whole thing because it's really the president's making the decision. So every time something comes out like this, I mean, I start to get a little bit excited, Austin, but then you do come back to life about an hour later and you say, well, okay, the coaches and the ADs want to play. Nothing has changed there. They're trying to put pressure on them. They're trying to do everything they can to find a solution, whether that's October 10th, like what was reported Tuesday, or not, or, it's something different, whether that's Thanksgiving, January. They're putting pressure on. At the end of the day, though, 6 presidents need to change their votes. You had the 3 that voted yes, Ohio State, Nebraska, and Iowa. And then you need 9, a 60% decision in favor of playing. And, at the end of the day, you're going to have to even get that thing to a vote, have these guys agree to even vote, and then get enough of them to change their minds. So we have to remember that when these reports come out. But there is, like you said, tons of pressure right now on Kevin Warren, on the Big Ten presidents. And if they can find some new safety measures, I mean, they have said themselves that until things change medically, that they're not going to consider playing. So if you can get some of those changes, if you can, these positive developments, a call with the president of the United States that the Big Ten said was positive, if this stuff results in real solutions, then I think you have to consider it. I don't think we're going to get anything to happen here before probably Thanksgiving at the very earliest, but you're telling me there's a chance. I've been optimistic that they're, over the last week or so, that they're working towards finding a solution.
Yeah, I agree. Michigan Athletic Director Ward Manuel has taken a lot of heat from fans during his tenure as AD at Michigan, but it was reported that he has been one of the biggest proponents in making this fall season work in the Big Ten. So I think you have to give him credit and props in that regard. And obviously these Big Ten head football coaches want to make it work. There had been reports that the coaches and their respective presidents were not on the same page at all, which isn't surprising. But so I'm not as optimistic as you are on this whole situation. I think Thanksgiving is the absolute best case scenario that we see a potential season occur. I'm still with Chris Ballas and thinking that it'll be either this upcoming winter or spring. But you talked about those safety measures. If they can get some of these new things and some of these new tests and methods approved, then I think there's a small chance that we could see it sooner than Thanksgiving. But I'm not holding my breath and I'm not optimistic, and I still think it'll be January or the spring where we actually see Big Ten football occur.
So you have the parents, you have the players, fans. They will be, they're continuing to fight. They will be protesting at the Big House on 1 p.m. at the Big House Tunnel. If anybody wants to join, that is where it will be, 1 p.m. on Saturday, September 5th. Austin, you will be there. Chris Ballas will be there. You guys will be covering that live for thewolverine.com. My question to you, are you going to bring your JT Barrett is short sign, your JT Barrett is short hat, and your JT Barrett was short shirt?
Well, for those who don't know me, I bring those items everywhere I go publicly, so of course they will be there. So that's really a no-brainer because that's a point that needs to be reinforced once again. So this protest,
we cannot lose sight of what's important. I mean, we cannot lose sight of the issues in this country that are important, like the fact that JT Barrett was short.
Priorities, my man, priorities. I think we've got our priorities in the right place on this one.
Yeah, so what do you expect to come out of that? I mean, obviously, probably not a decision, but again, the pressure is mounting here. I think even if nothing comes of it, I respect the right of these people to protest and say, we want change. We want something to change here with this decision, even if they don't get it. I think that them fighting for what they believe in is a great thing. It sounds like it's being organized by Melissa Hutchinson, Aiden Hutchinson's mom. And good for them for doing this. Is that where you stand on this as well?
Yeah, I expect nothing to come of this, but good for them because it's something that they believe strongly in, and it's something that they're going to keep fighting for. When they had the Big Ten protest at the Big Ten headquarters in Chicago a few weeks ago, only about 25 people showed up, but it got some national coverage. It was all over Twitter and social media platforms from ESPN. So even if a lot of people don't show up on Saturday at the Big House, it's bound to get coverage and it's bound to go viral. And it's just yet more heat and more pressure on Kevin Warren and the Big Ten and these higher ups making these decisions.
Yep. I hope something comes of it. So we will keep an eye on that. And again, we will have boots on the ground there at the Big House on Saturday. Austin, I mean, you were planning on going, right, to the Big House on Saturday, September 5th for Michigan-Purdue once we had that revised schedule. So I guess it looks like you're going to be there.
Yeah, exactly. I had marked my calendars already for that Purdue game when they came out with a revised schedule. So it's really there's not a whole lot of difference. Granted, I would much, much rather this be an actual football game than a protest. But, hey, I guess you'll take what you can get in these tough times nowadays.
I think, yeah. I mean, certainly would have rather had a football game than a protest. Who would have thought maybe a year ago that we would be gearing up for a protest on September 5th, but that's a depressing thought, so I don't want to go there. Let's talk about some of those more fun things because we were planning on having the season opener. We'll talk about some of our favorite season opening memories with Michigan football. Seems like, those games are always pretty memorable. We'll get to those. Before we do, I just want to remind everybody that this podcast is brought to you in part by JFQ Lending, a great partner of ours. With interest rates below 3%, there has never been a better time to lock in a low fixed interest rate on your mortgage. You'll never need to think about refinancing again. Set it and forget it. And with JFQ Lending, you are guaranteed to get the highest level of customer service. They have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and over 3,000 5-star reviews. You can give Josh Yoder a call at 480-378-0498. or email Josh directly at jyoder@jfqlending.com. JFQ Lending Incorporated, equal access lender, licensed in over 40 states, www.jfqlending.com. So, Austin, let's talk about some of those season opening memories because this week had a little different feel to it. When you woke up on Monday morning, my first thought was it should be game week. And I know I don't want to depress anybody here, like we said. So, I mean, it just would be so much different this week. It doesn't have that feel anymore now that we're at midweek. It just, again, more of the same that we're trying to possibly have a season here. But, man, I started going to every home opener since 2008. I did miss one in 2016. Wasn't able to go to the Hawaii game. I did go the next week, though, to the UCF game where Scott Frost's UCF team out-hit Michigan. So I was there for that game, and I'm sure, he's a great lobbyist, so he was lobbying for them out-hitting Michigan that game. But, man, I mean, there's been some memorable ones. what sticks out to me, 2009, Western Michigan, Denard Robinson's first play from scrimmage, a broken play, fumbles a snap, runs for a touchdown. You have 2010 against UConn, the rededication of the stadium, a 30-10 win. 2011, you had the game that only went 3 quarters against Western Michigan, a blowout win. So there's been so many. And then there's been some disappointing ones like the 08. The first time I started going was that Utah lost. Ended up being a really, really good Utah team, but was disappointing. So I guess I started going to those home openers at the wrong year in Rich Rod's first season. But, man, there's been some fun ones. What sticks out to you when you think of opening day at the Big House?
There really has been a lot of fun ones. I also think it's worth pointing out that both you and I are only in our 20s, so our memories don't go as far back as a lot of people who are probably listening to this podcast. So I'm going to talk about some of my favorite personal ones that I've experienced over the past 15 to 20 years or so, and also some before my time, and that occurred a lot further back that our old timers will appreciate. So you mentioned that 2010 game against UConn. It was the first game at the renovated Big House, Rich Rodriguez's third year, and it was Denard Robinson's coming out party. I remember there had been rumors on the Wolverine that Chris Ballas had reported in August that Denard was going to be the quarterback for this team, man, even though Tate Forcier had been the guy the year prior as a freshman. And I told people that, and they thought I was absolutely crazy. And I said, no, this Chris Ballas guy's legit. You got to, listen to it if he's saying it. And sure enough, Denard Robinson was the first quarterback out there that day, and he tore it up. He threw for 186 yards, rushed for 197, and Michigan blew out what was a pretty good UConn team, 30-10. That was a UConn team that wound up going to a BCS Bowl that year. And then the following year against Western Michigan, 2011, you talked about that as well. Brady Hoke's first game on the job, Michigan won 34-10 in a rain-shortened game. I had the chance to go to the game with 4 buddies, Cody and Charlie Hanks, but Dominic Schneider and Cam Treewaller. And that game started off with all sun and about 90-degree weather. And then right around the third quarter, the skies darkened and it started pouring like crazy. And obviously it lightninged and they canceled the game. They never even played the fourth quarter. So we got absolutely soaked, but it was worth it because, again, it was extremely hot that day. And then you talked about the 2016 Hawaii home opener that you missed that day. Michigan won that game 63-3, and that Michigan team was clicking on all cylinders right from the get-go under Jim Harbaugh. That was far and away his best team that he's had at Michigan. And, again, that team hit the ground running that year, and even though that wasn't a very good Hawaii team, they really dominated them from the get-go. And then the last most recent game I'll talk about is that 2017 opener against Florida down in Texas. Both teams were ranked in the top 20, and we didn't know it at the time, but we thought Florida was a pretty good team. Granted, they wound up going only 4-7, but Michigan really took it to them and won 33-17. I was fortunate enough to watch that game in Brett Thalen's legendary shed, which has basically become an iconic landmark in Westphalia. So it was an all-around awesome day where a reloaded Michigan defense with, I believe, 10 new starters really dominated Florida. And again, Michigan wound up winning 33-17. We didn't know it at the time, but we thought that was going to be a really good Michigan team. Granted, they wound up going 8-5, but it was a good day, and it's always fun to beat down an SEC opponent. So out of the most recent games, those are 4 of the top memories that come to mind in regards to season openers.
Yeah, those were all great. I think one thing about that 17 game against Florida, we knew that the defense was legit. We found that out that game. Of course, there were some problems with the offense, and then he had some injuries, and it all kind of mounted there that season. But when you talk about a season opener, there's just such a different feeling about it. I mean, I like opening day in baseball, obviously, too. I'm more of a football guy, though, than anything. So there's just something different. Austin, is there really any way to put into words what it's like to either, even watching from home, but just the day of a season opening game or going to that game, tailgating before? There's something about it because it's still hot out. You mentioned that Western Michigan game in 2011. That was insane how hot it was earlier in the turn of events with the weather. But there's just a weird, great feeling about it that's indescribable. It's different than a big game feel because a lot of these teams, again, you're playing UConn, or Western Michigan a lot of times, or Hawaii or Appalachian State in 2014 only that we'll talk about. It's the only Appalachian State game that we'll talk about here. But there's just something different about it in terms of the whole day and the pageantry of college football that makes it so beautiful.
You can't describe it and you can't put it into words, and there simply is no way to describe it. And the only way you can experience it is if you are a diehard Michigan fan, and you have been your whole life, and it's ingrained in your entire family culture. Basically, once that Monday of game week hits, you don't sleep well throughout the week just thinking about the upcoming game, and you certainly don't sleep well the night before. On that Friday, the second you wake up on Saturday of game day, it's the only thing that's in your head, and it's the only thing you think about up until kickoff. You talked about the tailgating, but that's special. The drive down to the stadium in Ann Arbor, that's special. Listening to pregame on the radio, watching the band come out, I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it. There's no other tradition like it in not only college football, but all of sports. When that band comes out onto the field and those players come out onto that tunnel, and we see Harbaugh come out and that James Earl Jones video play over that scoreboard, it's a tradition unlike any other, and that's why Michigan football is the most storied and historical college program in all of college football.
Give it to me, man. Give it to me right now. We need it. Maybe it could come in October. Who knows? But that is, I mean, you said you couldn't describe it, but I think you just described it great. You know, there is no feel. I have trouble describing it just because it is so unique. And I mean, you wait all summer for it. Again, I don't want to depress anybody here because we should be having this thing hopefully in October. Austin, I'm still not giving up the hope on that. I mean, there's developments that are going on. There's a chance that they can make something work. Last thing before we let everybody go and we send them off into their Labor Day weekend, Austin, other than the protest that you will be attending on Saturday, and you will be, of course, wearing your JT Barrett with short sign or shirt, hat, and you'll be carrying your JT Barrett with short sign. Any other plans for Labor Day weekend for you?
I do not. I think it's going to be a pretty laid-back weekend as a whole. There are some people in Westphalia, Michigan, Cam Treewaller, who instead of obviously watching the opener at their house, since it's not going to occur, they're going to have a tailgate out on their lawn, and they're going to play classic Michigan games all afternoon. I think they're kicking things off with the 06 beatdown of Notre Dame. So if I am in Westphalia at all this weekend, I plan on attending that. There's going to be a lot of tailgaters who are usually in Ann Arbor for the weekly tailgate who are going to attend. So I'm really looking forward to watching a lot of Michigan classics if that does wind up occurring.
Those are the solutions we're looking for. That's beautiful. I love to hear that. I am going to be up north on Saturday with some family, and I was planning on not being able to attend, but now I can attend, sadly. So it's a decent trade-off, Austin. But, I mean, man, a tailgate, tailgate anyway. Keep it going, everybody. I suggest that to everybody out there. Tailgate, do your social distancing, wear your mask, but tailgate, pretend that we're going to have football because one day we will have it again. There's that for positive vibes. How's that?
I like it, man. I like it. You're ending on a positive note, and really we're making the best out of a really bad situation. It's not going to be the same as watching live Michigan football, but reliving a lot of these classics with some diehard Michigan people is, I guess, the next best thing that we can do.
Absolutely. Stay safe, everybody, this weekend, Labor Day. Have a great weekend. We will see you next week.